hold everybody up. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to call the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council our meeting for March 27th, 2026 to order at 10:04 a.m. Marcy, would you like to do agenda item A, our welcome and introductions?
Sure. Okay. So if people happen to call in, I'll get to you or try to find you. So Melissa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, good morning, Melissa Van Hook. I'm the council chair, a family member, and also chair of executive committee, Meaningful Careers, and then I do sit on the behavioral health ad hoc as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica.
Monica Cooper, self-advocate and chair of the grants committee.
Thank you. Ken.
Good morning, everyone. Council member here. Thank you.
Thank you. Bianca.
Morning, Bianca Demara, council member.
Thank you. JC. Is JC on the call still? She's muted. Okay, we're moving on. Kathy.
Good morning, Kathy Lewandowski, family member, chair of the Work Plan Review Committee.
Okay. Kristen, I think you were having some computer issues, but if you're there.
She sent me a message. She needs to reboot her computer.
Okay, she's here. Okay, Gabriella.
Good morning, everyone. Mom to Josh and council member. Welcome.
Great. Thank you. Good morning. Kelly.
Kelly Roberts, member.
Thank you, Kelly. Vijette.
Good morning, Vijette Sari, council member and family member.
Okay. Thank you. Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Slaughter, a council member representing a soon-to-be 90-year-old woman who was institutionalized.
Mary and Jeffrey.
Good morning, everyone. Jeff Studer, Arizona Department of Education, Exceptional Student Services.
Terrific. Did I miss any other council members?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do see JC on the call, but I didn't.
Yeah, she may have stepped away, but we got her listed as attending. Okay. Staff members, John.
Good morning, everyone. John Myers, Executive Director.
Michael.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Leva, Contracts and Grants Coordinator.
Lonnie.
Good morning, Lonnie St. Cyr, Fiscal Manager.
Sarah.
Morning, Sarah Ruth, Communications Director.
Jason.
Good morning, Jason Steen, Research and Communications Specialist.
Terrific. And Alexander, is he there, our intern?
Yes. Good morning, Alexander Martinez. I'm the current social work intern with the council.
Terrific. Anybody else at the table? All staff. Okay. And then we have a couple of guests. Megan.
Good morning, everybody. Megan Donahue from IHD, supporting your plan development.
Thank you, Megan. Stephanie Johnson.
Good morning, everyone. Stephanie Johnson, Strategic Initiatives Manager with RSA.
Thank you. And Carl. Want to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, sorry. My name is Carl Easton. I'm with the Arizona Auditor General's Office, and I'm just observing.
Thank you very much. And your last name is Houston?
Easton, E-A-S-T-I-N.
Thank you. Anybody else as a guest?
I have a guest.
Good morning. My name is Jose. I'm Gabby's husband and here from Ideal Care.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabby. Welcome. Okay. Back to you, Melissa.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for that, Marcy. Welcome to everybody and our guests included. Thanks for joining us. Let's move on to agenda item B, our review, of our minutes and approval from our January 16th, 2026 full council. Has everybody had the opportunity, I hope, to review those minutes? Before I call for a motion to approve the minutes, are there any corrections or comments that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the minutes as written for the January 16, 2026 full council meeting. Do I have a motion?
This is Bijette, so moved.
Thank you, Vijette. Do I have a second?
I second.
Is that Gabby?
Yes.
Okay, Gabby, thank you so much. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Mhm.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone not voting? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Agenda item C, our fiscal contract update with Lonnie Sincere, our fiscal manager.
Thanks, Melissa.
Of course.
John, would you mind sharing the documents?
I would not mind. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you. So the council has received a total allotment of $1,500,684 for fiscal year 2024. The obligation period was through September 30th of 2025, and the council has fully obligated these funds. The council requested and received a no-cost extension for the project period, which now runs through September 30th of 2026. There's approximately $3,472 remaining to be liquidated by September 30th of 2026. The council has received a total allotment for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $1,497,106. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2026. The council has fully obligated these funds, and there's approximately $478,199 remaining to be liquidated. The final report will be due January 28th of 2028. We are not anticipating a no-cost extension for these funds, so it's going to be very essential that we get the work done during the project period, so all work should be completed by this September. Finally, the council has received the first allotment for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $500,154. Sorry about that. The obligation and project periods are through September 30th of 2027. The liquidation period is through September 30th of 2028. We have been told to expect level funding, but that is still uncertain as we have not received our final notice of award yet. These funds will be primarily used for 2027 projects. These projects are still being determined as part of the new 5-year state plan. So kind of what you're seeing in that final column for 2026 is an estimate, but we've been told level funding, so let's hope we'll get our notice of award soon. Any questions on this sheet? Okay. Moving on to the next one, which shows the council funded projects. This sheet shows all the current projects funded by the council. All the new and continuing projects are reflected. There's nothing really to highlight here. It's pretty much business as usual. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, moving on to the next one. This sheet reflects the projects outlined in the fiscal year 2026 work plan, as well as projects that may have moved forward as part of the five-year state plan. The funding year is the year prior to the project year. So fiscal year 2025 funds are being used primarily for projects to be completed in fiscal year 2026. So fiscal year 25 dollars are being used for projects and this year's work plan. The administrative budget has increased to reflect the work to be done with the comprehensive review and analysis and the 5-year state plan development. Just know that this sheet is very fluid at the moment, as the 2026 funding has not been determined and the state plan development is still underway. So expect changes until final determinations on projects and funding amount has been determined. Any questions on this sheet? Okay, that's it for me. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you so much, Lonnie. All right, let's move on to agenda item D, our executive director report with John Myers, our illustrious executive director.
Said no one ever.
Just today,
Okay.
John.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. First item, our fiscal year 25 performance or program performance report, or PPR. We talk about our PPR quite a lot because even when we're not doing our PPR, we seem to be thinking about it all the time. It was submitted back in December. This is maybe just a final note that we still have not received any comments on it, but we don't anticipate there are going to be any real issues with it. It was very similar to information we submitted in the year before and the year before that. And as far as I can tell from sort of informal conversations with our program officer at ACL, we are in good shape and there aren't any significant concerns. I don't think there are even any minor concerns with what we included. So we feel good and we would expect to probably see any comments they have around May, maybe even as late as June, because with some staff changes at ACL, there's one person now who's responsible for reviewing the PPRs for all 56 councils. There used to be 2, so double the workload may take a little bit longer to get some response. In any case, nothing for us to worry about. We seem to be in pretty good shape. As Lonnie mentioned, our fiscal year 26 notice of award has not been received yet. I got a message from one of our contacts at NACDD yesterday that ACL was trying to finalize all of the notices of award by yesterday afternoon or this morning. I have been logged into the Grant Solutions, the federal reporting website, several times this morning to try and see if that NOA has been issued. It has not so far, but as Lonnie also mentioned, we are expecting our funding to be level for the year. We have no reason to believe that anything is going to change significantly. And once again, through various conversations with people at ACL, every indication is that that things are just going to continue as they have. Our dollar amount may not be identical to what it was last year, but it will be largely the same. It'll be right in the same neighborhood, we expect. So hopefully, I mean, I have no reason to believe that by June we won't be able to tell you what that final amount is. With regard to the federal budget for, I should have said fiscal year 2027. The fiscal year 26 budget, as we all know, was finally approved toward the end of January, everything except the Department of Homeland Security. If you read the newspaper today, you see that there probably is some funding going to Homeland Security now, minus some funding for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Anyway, that's, a big thing that was holding things up. But the continuing resolution came to a close at the end of January. The budget was passed to include programs like ours. So that's why we have reason to believe that our funding is going to remain level for the remainder of this year. We are entering, however, the fiscal year 27 appropriations development period. And although the administration has not yet submitted its budget proposal to Congress, Congress is very much in the mode of developing its own versions of what they want the fiscal year 27 budget to look like. And the reason that matters to us, obviously, is because we are funded through federal appropriation. And there is a representative from Illinois, Representative Budzinski, who for the last several years has distributed what's called a Dear Colleague letter to the other members of the House to basically get people to sign on in support of programs like DD councils, protection and advocacy agencies, and USEDS. The Dear Colleague letter was distributed earlier this month. The period for people to sign ended earlier this week, and on the 25th. And it turned out that there was a record number of House members who signed on to the letter. In this case, 86 this year signed on to the letter, including 3 from Arizona. In the past, we've only ever had 1 sign on from Arizona. This year, we got Representative Ansari, who was a previous signer, but also got Representative Stanton and Representative Grijalva to sign on to that letter. Now, I want to be clear, we as we as a federally funded entity are not allowed to ask people to sign on, but we were able to let them know that the letter was circulating and that if they wished to sign on, they could. We made that option clear to all of our House members, and in the end, 3 of them decided to sign on to the letter. And that's a good sign. It's a good showing. It indicates that there is strong support for the DDAX programs in the House of Representatives, and it means that our Arizona representatives are more aware, perhaps, than they have been of the importance of these programs to the disability community in Arizona. So we're very pleased about that. We don't know where the federal budget is going to go. If it goes as it has in recent years, we may see another continuing resolution come October 1st. We hope that's not the case. We would love to see a federal budget in place before the new federal fiscal year starts. But anything can happen, and we'll just have to wait and see. But things have at least started off on a good note. The new commissioner for the Administration on Disabilities, Rebecca Hines, visited Arizona a few weeks back, late February, I think it was. She was here on kind of a listening tour, trying to get familiar with DDAC programs, with independent living program, with a variety of things that fall under the ACL umbrella and the Administration on Disabilities umbrella. And given the fact that she was only a couple of weeks into her job, it was, I think she said it was like drinking from a fire hose. If you're not familiar with her, she is a former special education professor from the University of Central Florida. She also coincidentally happens to be RFK Jr.'s sister-in-law. But that aside, she is eminently qualified for the position she's in. She knows the disability community well. She knows disability issues well. And she came to Arizona as sort of her first stop as commissioner of AOD to get familiar with a number of programs, including ours. We had a chance to spend some time with her. She went to the Think College Arizona annual planning meeting that took place one of the days she was here. She spent some time with Disability Rights Arizona in Tucson. She spent some time at Ability 360 here in Phoenix and met with some of the leadership there. She spent some time here at the council, met with some of our staff and some council members through a video link, and had a great conversation with her. She, again, was taking in information at a pretty rapid pace, and I think trying to digest it as quickly as she could. But she left the meeting with an expression of gratitude for us taking the time. And I was in a meeting with her actually earlier this week in Washington, D.C. And during that conversation, which involved other DD Council directors, she on several occasions pointed out things that she had witnessed here in Arizona that she thought were good models for others to follow around the country. So all in all, I think a good visit and a good outcome from that visit. We will clearly stay in contact with her and try to make the most of the new relationship. We're very pleased. I think, we all have to, I think, be grateful that someone with her qualifications is in that position, and that she was willing to come to our state to learn a little bit more about our program so early in her tenure. Speaking of being in Washington, D.C., Sarah and I, along with a great many other people from Arizona, were at the Disability Policy Seminar this week in Washington, D.C. We had 28 people from Arizona attending. It's the largest number we've ever had in our group. About half of those were representatives of the LEND program at U of A, which I know Bianca is very familiar with. Some of the others of you may be familiar as well. I think we had 13 or 14 LEND representatives out of that 28. So that was a great showing. We had an opportunity to visit 9 of our 11 congressional offices. We met with staff from both of our senators' offices, with 7 of our 9 House members. We actually had an 8th House member scheduled to, or staff member of a House office scheduled to meet with us, but then he got sick and had to cancel that meeting at the last minute. In any case, the meeting went very, very well. Everybody who participated was very pleased with the opportunity to visit those offices. We had some great conversations with members from both parties. I must say they were very receptive to us. I can't say that we individually or collectively necessarily agree on every point that was raised, but they were very kind and very receptive to us and offered us an opportunity to share with them what's important to the disability community in Arizona and elsewhere. And I think we have a lot of things we can work on with those folks moving forward. Sarah is going to share some of those ideas a little later in the agenda, based on the conversations we had and the opportunities that may have arisen from those. It was overall a very good visit. Separate from the disability policy seminar, as I mentioned, I was in a meeting with 4 other state council directors and the commissioner from AOD and a couple of our program officers from OIDD. Sorry about all the acronyms and abbreviations. OIDD is the Office on Intellectual Developmental Disabilities, which is within the Administration on Disabilities, or AOD. So we had a really good conversation, spent about an hour and a half talking with her. I think we went well over time, but she was willing to give us the time. So we got more of an introduction to the strategic priorities of AOD as part of that meeting. And I can tell you that there is a strong commitment from AOD toward improving housing opportunities for people with disabilities, and in particular, people with IDD, strong commitment to financial security for people with IDD, including better use, better awareness about ABLE accounts, better awareness about work opportunities that will not jeopardize people's federal benefits. So once again, very encouraging information that came out of our interactions with Dr. Hines. Regarding the access and DDD eligibility changes, as a quick kind of history lesson, we all know, I think, that back on October 1st, some new processes and new eligibility standards were put in place for recipients of long-term care services in Arizona for people in the All-Tex program, particularly people who receive services through DDD. Those programs, those processes were then put on hold in the middle of October by the governor, because the state needed more time to do an adequate job of putting together, I think it's fair to say, putting together a program that would pass legal muster and that did not inappropriately disadvantage certain members of the disability community. All of this came about as a result of the funding package that was passed by the legislature last year to keep DDD solvent, the $122 million supplemental appropriation. As part of that, they required that Access and DDD come up with some stricter guidelines, some better enforcement mechanisms, greater accountability for programs that the state is spending money on. We are still, the programs are still on hold. We have still not emerged from that process yet, or that hold yet, but we have been informed within the last couple of days that DDD and Access are going to be holding some community listening sessions in April to try and explain what the new system, I guess, is going to look like, what the new requirements are going to be, how they're going to be applied, and who is going to be affected. So notice went out from DDD and Access. The sessions are open to the public. Anybody who wants to attend can attend. They are all online, so they should be accessible to anyone from virtually anywhere. And it is hoped anyway that we will be able to understand what this means for the disability community, and we are also hopeful that it will not be long after those sessions that the new systems and processes will be put into place. One of the things we've been told to expect is that the age bands, or the eligibility standards based upon age that were in the system put into place on October 1st will likely be part of the new regimen, I guess, going forward. We don't know exactly, we don't know if it's going to be exactly what it was, but we expect it'll be at least significantly some version of what was put into place in October. There are folks, especially I know the folks at Disability Rights Arizona, have some serious concerns about that. There is going to be what they call an extraordinary care review process, which is essentially an appeals process for people who feel that their new eligibility or their new assessments are not fair or don't meet the needs of the members they serve or represent. It is really impossible at this point to know because we haven't even been given a draft of what the new system is going to look like. So we're all guessing, but I'm pretty sure that the advocacy community will still have some work to do after the new process is unveiled next month. I wish I could tell you more right now, but we just don't have many details. What it does look like, though, I guess the long and short of it is, what it looks like is that the birth to age 17 member population is likely to be most affected by the new changes. And in many cases, it's probably going to result in fewer hours and fewer services for a fairly large number of people. That, I mean, I don't want to be quoted necessarily on that because, again, I don't know for a fact, but that would have been the result had the October 1 changes been kept in place. And given the fact that this legislature is looking for ways to save money on expenditures like disability services, it seems like common sense that that's probably what's going to happen. So in any case, I hope that makes sense. I know it's very convoluted, but sometime in April, we should know what the new high needs tool, they're calling it, the new eligibility standards are going to look like. And we'll be able to act based on that once we know more. The state budget for fiscal year 2027 has not yet been developed or released to the public. Some headlines in recent days indicate that the governor's office has ceased its negotiations with the legislature related to the fiscal 27 budget, which goes into effect July 1st. By law, the legislature has to approve or pass a budget that then goes to the governor for her signature by June 30th. Several members of the legislature, several members in leadership at the legislature have said they expect to go right down to the wire, as it has done in recent years. A lot of this has to do with the fact that the state's revenues are lower than they have been in recent years. A lot has to do with disagreement over what's called tax conformity. And that has its origins in HR 1, the big federal reconciliation bill that was passed, last July, I think it was, yeah. That is likely to result in the Medicaid cuts that have us so worried. Part of what the state legislature has to do now, or part of what the legislature and the governor have to do now, is agree upon whether they're going to amend Arizona's tax codes to conform with the new federal tax codes. And there is disagreement on how much conformity Arizona should adopt. There are basically two issues. One is individual tax laws or individual tax codes. The other is corporate tax codes. The party in power in the legislature would like us to adopt the federal guidelines related to both. The governor's office has said she wants to adopt the individual tax codes and give individuals some tax savings, but not adopt the corporate tax codes. So they have to work out some kind of compromise that basically comes to a resolution. Until they are able to do that, we really can't craft a state budget because we won't know how much money the state is going to have coming in moving forward. So it's kind of a mess. And you mix into that all of the other areas of disagreement that are typical to developing a state budget. And it's even a little more complicated this year than it has been in the past. So once we know more about that, we can tell you more about that, or maybe you can tell us about that, depending on, what knowledge you have about it. But at this point, we don't know where it stands. And that means that people receiving services through the Division of Developmental Disabilities, through access to various other programs, could potentially be affected. At a minimum, it means that the anxiety level is going to rise probably for everybody who receives services from the state. And obviously, the sooner they can resolve this, the better for everyone. So more to come on that. Just kind of an FYI, I guess. Related to the Rural Health Transformation Grant, I shared in past meetings that as part of HR 1, in an effort to mitigate the negative impacts of Medicaid cuts on rural health facilities and rural health providers, Congress established what's known as the Rural Health Transformation Fund, and every state could apply for up to $200 million per year for 5 years to help address rural health needs, to support innovative programs in rural communities, and to try and prevent people who might be losing Medicaid coverage, or to prevent healthcare facilities that might be losing Medicaid revenues from suffering too much. At this point, well, Arizona was approved for 167 million rather than 200 million. At this point, the RFPs for whatever programs are going to be put into place have not yet been issued by Access or the governor's office. And I'm not entirely familiar with why those haven't been issued, but the concern is that the monies have to be spent by December 31st, and the more of a delay we see, the less time entities have to spend those dollars. If they're not spent, they can be clawed back by the federal government, and we don't want to see that happen. So we're hopeful that the administrators of the program at Access in the governor's office will be able to issue those RFPs soon, that the review process will be prompt and rapid, and that we will be able to see programs start to get into place and active in the very near future. We know that the needs in rural communities are not diminishing, they're only growing greater. So we want to make sure the dollars can be put to good use. And in particular, we want to make sure that individuals with disabilities who live in those rural communities can continue to receive the kind of care and support they need in order to have high quality of life, and in order to access services that are essential to them for their health and well-being. So hopefully, again, I hate to say this one more time, but more to come on that as we learn more. Once again, the concerns of people with disabilities in those rural communities are really foremost in our mind. So we'll stay abreast of that. The final thing I would say is related to the Arizona legislature, separate and apart from the budget, although I'm sure there's some budget overlap, is that there is a lot going on at the legislature. There have not been as many bills introduced this year that are as directly focused on people with disabilities as there have been in some past years, but there are a great many bills that have some effect on people with disabilities. In particular, a large number of election-related or voting-related bills have been introduced. Many of those continue to move forward. They either have passed the House or passed the Senate and are now seeking passage in the opposite chamber. Some of those would restrict the availability of, basically restrict the opportunity for a lot of people with disabilities to cast a ballot by limiting the number of voting centers, or limiting the hours of voting centers and polling places, or reducing the amount of time for mail-in voting, or a variety of things like that. There is, of course, a federal bill, the Save America Act, which would have, in my personal opinion, I think in the opinion of a lot of disability advocates, would have a pretty devastating effect, not only on the disability community, but on lots of other folks as well. In particular, it would be harmful to the disability community because of the restrictions it would place on access to the ballot. But at the state level, we have similar versions or complementary versions of that going through. In all likelihood, I think it's fair to say, because these are primarily Republican-supported bills, they are likely, if they reach the governor's desk, they are likely to be vetoed. And I'm not being partisan here. I'm just saying this, it's kind of a reality. We've already seen a number of bills that Republicans supported strongly that the governor has vetoed because they don't meet with her priorities. I don't think it's unlikely that similar bills around elections wouldn't also be vetoed by her. There are also several bills moving forward that relate to SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, to access Medicaid services, Medicaid coverage for healthcare, similar safety net kinds of programs to not necessarily restrict eligibility, but to require more frequent eligibility redetermination, which can pose challenges for people with disabilities who have either mobility issues or lack transportation in their community to get to ADDPC or access offices, a variety of different things that could pose problems for them. Once again, there is disagreement between leadership in the legislature and the governor's office on these kinds of things. I again don't think it's unlikely that they wouldn't be vetoed if they reach the governor's desk. There are some good things happening, I will say. There are several bills moving forward that would expand duty to report requirements for various professionals who interact with vulnerable adults, including people with disabilities and children in the DCS system. So those could potentially be very positive, could be very helpful as we continue to battle issues around abuse and neglect and exploitation of vulnerable adults. There is a bill that was supported, that was introduced in the House, passed the House. It now has passed committee in the Senate, is going to the Senate floor, that would establish a technology first study committee in Arizona. And if you're not familiar with technology first, that is similar to employment first. We are an employment first state by executive order of Governor Ducey from 2017, I believe it was. Technology first designation would mean that our state is doing everything within its power to improve access to assistive and enabling technology for individuals with disabilities. It's something that we're working on as part of our Bridging Aging and Disability Networks grant. It is something that we are very hopeful about. We, as a council, once again, cannot take a position on the legislation. It was sponsored by somebody without our involvement, but with the involvement of a private individual who is working on our bridging project. It looks likely that it is going to pass the full Senate and end up with the governor, and I would anticipate she will sign it. There's no fiscal note attached. There's no cost to the state for this, so that's an advantage for the bill's sponsor. Anything, of course, that has a fiscal note attached tends to have to jump over additional hurdles in order to reach passage. And then the final note I would say regarding the legislature has to do with money, and that is support for the DD service system. There was one bill introduced this year to increase reimbursement rates for providers of DD services. Senator Fincham introduced that bill. It would provide $45 million in funding for increased reimbursement rates. It's not an insubstantial amount of money, but it's still only about a third, less than a third of what the state needs to make up its current shortfall, an estimated shortfall based on our most recent rate rebase study. It has passed both the House and Senate. It is now going to get bogged down in the appropriations process, and based on conversations that I've had with the lobbyists for the Provider Association, they do not think it's going to survive that process. So it's an important signal that, and by the way, Senator Fincham is a Republican, a very conservative Republican, but also a strong champion of the DD service system. So it's a great sign that, we have bipartisan support on this issue, but the reality is that the dollars may simply not be there in the state budget moving forward to provide that rate increase. And that is challenging because providers have not had a rate increase in 7 years and they are financially struggling. So a number of providers have gone out of business or had to sell to larger organizations. There, in many parts of the state, there is kind of a crisis of availability for things like group homes and day programs and similar kinds of services. So, it's an unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, and it's not good for the individuals that we represent, for them to have to struggle to find the services that affect their quality of life. Excuse me, but it is a financial reality. Now we can always be optimistic and hope that some kind of rate increase comes out in the budget, but nobody is really holding their breath on that right now. So apologies for ending on kind of a down note, but that's sort of the situation we're in. Some good things happening, but those things that involve any kind of additional financial investment from the state are probably not going to go forward. So I will stop there, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
It's a lot to think about. Does anybody have any questions for John now? And if you don't, feel free to reach out to him. Okay. Justin Harris. Hi, Justin. Good to see you. Does have a comment. Great update, John. Thanks for sharing realities. Okay. Okay. If you do think of something or have a need for more information, please reach out to John. Okay. John, thank you so much. You guys have had a lot. Good job in DC, by the way, for all of you. I'm so happy we had so many representatives there from our state. All right, moving on to agenda item E. I'm really looking forward to hearing about this. Our event report for West Valley Hispanic Latino Outreach and Resource Fair with our council member, Gabby, and her husband. Thanks for being here. Mike Leva, our Grants and Contacts Coordinator, and Alexander Martinez, our MSW intern. Thank you. I'm just going to say in advance, Gabby and Mr. Orozco, thank you so much for working so hard for the council and for doing things for the community. You've been amazing. And for Mike and Alexander, I know you put a lot of work into it. So, okay, I'm going to be quiet now.
Thank you, Melissa.
You bet.
This is Mike, and I'd like to give a shout out to University of Arizona alumni Bianca, JC, Lonnie, and JJ on Arizona Wildcats men's basketball team's win last night. Go Wildcats. They punched their ticket to the Elite Eight with an exciting run. Wishing JJ all the best as he gets through the next few weeks. Maybe he's celebrating right now, and that's why he's not with us. But moving on, providing internship community opportunities for Master of Social Work students is essential for developmental disabilities planning councils, as it strengthens community advocacy, bridges the gap between policy and practice, and helps prepare the next generation of professionals in disability rights and empowerment. These internships play a key role in developing a workforce focused on self-determination, systems change, and inclusive support. Over the years, under John's leadership, the council has built a strong partnership with Arizona State University School of Social Work, offering interns hands-on experience in outreach and engagement, resource development, and capacity building. Interns bring fresh perspectives and energy, contributing to projects that enhance the council's ability to support individuals with disabilities. This past year, we had the pleasure of hosting Alexander Martinez as an intern. In addition to pursuing his MSW, Alexander is also completing a master's in public administration, which he will finish this summer. An impressive accomplishment that reflects his dedication and drive. It's my pleasure now to introduce Alexander. Here.
All right, thank you, Mike, for the introduction, and so much again for having this opportunity. As he mentioned, I am currently a part of the graduate program at the ASU School of Social Work. Specifically, the plan that I am on, or the PAC that I'm on, is the PAC program, which is Policy, Administration, and Community Practice. So I was able to get the really good opportunity to intern here with the council. I'm really grateful for the chance that I've had to intern here and all of the resources and support that I've gotten from everybody. Especially thank you to Michael as my task manager. He's been a really great support for me throughout this last semester. And as part of my PAC internship, I'm supposed to be doing a portfolio. So I'm expected to put together about 3 to 5 projects that are to be presented at the end of the year before I can graduate. And because of that, this is where kind of the catalyst came for this project to kind of come together. As somebody who grew up in the West Valley, I'm actually located in Tolleson and have been for many generations. So I'm pretty ingratiated in that community. I've kind of looked around and realized that a lot of people on the West Valley, especially those of Hispanic descent, kind of struggle a lot with receiving services, especially if they are disabled or have family members who are disabled. Kind of realize a lot of people around me don't really understand how the system works, or the culture kind of lets them believe that they cannot ask for help, even if the help is being offered. And I think it's a real shame that a lot of services that are available are very far from the West Valley. So kind of the impetus for this project was that I wanted to put together something that would bring those services and that support to the West Side. I want people to really be able to know that the services are there for them and that they don't have to travel, across the state or, towards the East Valley or Mesa to get some sort of service. So really, I just wanted to put together something that would allow people to come together, learn and be able to feel like they're coming away with a community that will support them. And this started out just as a very small idea I mentioned to Mike and the rest of the council on like the first few weeks of my classes. And it from there kind of just spiraled into this really great event. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And I want to give a big shout out to Gabby and Jose. They were a great help throughout the entire event, from the planning to getting the word out to following up with people who attended and really letting me know what they came away with. So with that, I don't want to take up any more time, but I just want to give that shout out, and I'll pass it over to Gabby and let her talk a little bit about how this resource fair went and what the turnout was like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
you.
much. We're very excited, incredibly excited to be presenting to all of you today and sharing the space with you all. That's actually really surpassed all of our expectations, because originally we probably had about a month or less to plan this. I want to say, right? Just a very short time to plan all of it.
And just to add, Michael and Alexander, it was a pleasure to work with you guys. It was an awesome experience because you're so easy to work with and it's so accessible. So thank you beforehand.
Great. It was a really wonderful team. It was something, again, very short. It was just a couple of weeks. And I remember I probably didn't trust Jose as much, which I should have completely. That was my error, because, you know, we were expecting, we said maybe 25, 30. He's like, no, we can at least do 50 people.
At least.
I said, it's not gonna. And we actually turned people down at the end because we were worried about food, right? And then a few people got lost because they thought the sports complex and they didn't think it was a place where we were meeting. So there was a few issues even in between.
Logistics.
We competed with a few other events that were big that were going around in Arizona as well, which is the event, I still call it RSK,
In
Circle Families,
McCormick.
which usually the majority of our families will attend. So we had a few factors through it all. Families surpassed our exceedingly well every expectation we have. We're so grateful that they came over. We welcomed them, letting them know that it was a safe place for them to be here, and that they were coming to learn firsthand the resources and tools to better advocate for their children. The families were extremely, extremely grateful that there was something that organizations that people took to come to. What they mentioned was to their backyard, because we're used to going to any event like this and we have to travel far. We have to go far and go see these events. And at times we get some of the information, a lot of the information we're not fully able to understand it. It's not in our language. So everything was fully accessible with Spanish translation. They were so grateful. And then they said, and to top it off, we had really good food. We're like grateful. So I came back thinking that this is something that we definitely have to put more of an emphasis and provide the support for families in the West Valley. The West Valley has always been, it's not a secret to anyone that that's our passion, the West Valley. We have always lived in the West Valley. That's been our passion, serving the families in the West Valley. And there is such a big need that we were able to do step one, and hopefully this will be something that we can continue to address in the future and bridge that gap, because we noticed, again, that need for the families. From talking to the professionals there, to having that networking experience for them, having it so close to them, they were so grateful. They felt like I'm just so grateful that they took the time to come to us, to work with us and see our needs. So I thought that was a really wonderful experience, that they felt that they deserve that, honestly, that they deserve that we do events everywhere and that we have been missing this a lot. We do our support group every time, but they felt like there was all these organizations, all these people that came, and they were so humbled. They were so humbled and they were happy to see this and hear from everybody. So I feel that hopefully this is something that we continue to do, that we're able to do, because for the families, they felt that the part where the families shared their stories was so impactful for them. They said seeing the kids from like preteen through secondary education and just seeing their stories was something that resonated for a lot of the families. They saw their children there, their loved ones, and that was something they felt, my son can be there. My son could do something like this in the future. And it was very inspiring for them. Again, we think there's something that will definitely need to be done in the future. We will definitely need a bigger venue. Alexander, we're grateful for the venue. It was amazing, but we just saw we couldn't fit probably more people that continued to trickle in. So this is definitely a bigger venue that we will need to accommodate more families. Even though we were competing with, I don't know if it was basketball, racquetball, I'm not even familiar, but rap music, some of the families brought their children along because that's how much they were eager to just be there and learn. I can't say enough. I'm very grateful to everyone for the support and being part of this. It was a wonderful collaboration with Michael, especially that invited us, for Alexander, for just your thoughts on having this. We're very grateful and humbled that you included us all. And it was something that the families came back so happy. We actually ended up hearing maybe even a week after. That day we heard quite a few stories. A week after, we had the moms dinner, and the moms continued to talk about it. They were like, oh my God, you missed out on this event. Why didn't you come out to this event? You're asking me questions. You should have been there. So now moms had this momentum where they were motivating each other to continue to be involved and be part of this. So they're already asking, when is the next event coming up? So again, we were just very privileged to be a part of this. And hopefully this is something that we continue and do again. Jose, ask for whatever you want.
I think, once again, I can't thank you enough, Michael and Alexander. This was so encouraging to the families. You know, one of the things is that, you know, they look forward to learning. Every parent wants that. And this was so encouraging to dream, continue the dream and make it into a reality, because it's so needed. Things like this, events like this, people that come out and most of the stuff, you know, no knock on it, but it's on the east. You know, you have to go east for that. And this time it was in the west. And believe me, the word is going to go out, and as it has been. And once they hear that it's going to repeat itself, and more people are going to help them, it's part of the community that we serve, and they're grateful for anything. And, you know, the learning curve may be a little bit slow. We discussed a little bit of items, you know, that the next time, you know, we're going to allow them to, or provide paper and pen, so to speak, to gather their thoughts and their questions. And then have something afterwards where maybe they can send it in an email form, or we can address it with the monthly meetings at GANE. And of course, I'll make ourselves available to anybody, Michael and Alexander, once again, yourselves as leaders, to let us know, and so that we can go also and share feedback from the parents. This, we can't say enough. If everybody that thought that this was just a place and they said we came to the wrong place, we could have been beyond 100 and I would venture to say maybe 130, 120 at least. But this was good enough, because in competition with the In Circle event that's, I guess, 38 years in the running, and something Valleypalooza that was going on elsewhere, I think it was right on spot, right on spot. So thank you again. And thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for just showing up and all the effort that you guys put into it. I think that truly we had turnout we did because of the effort you put in. So I'm also grateful for the work that you guys put in. I also just want to take the time now just to recognize a few other people who helped along the way. I want to thank Jason Sneed and Sarah Ruth on the council, who were just as enthusiastic about this event as we all were. And behind the scenes, they really were helpful in letting me know the resources to reach out to, how to really get all of this put together. So I want to thank those two as well. And I want to give our biggest shout out to April Reed at Ability 360. They actually sponsored the event, and without her assistance and the assistance of Ability 360, this could not have happened. The venue would not have been able to be, we wouldn't be able to be there at the venue. The food that they provided that all of the families enjoyed was because Ability 360 and April Reed. So I do want to give a big shout out to them as well and recognize all the efforts that they put into making this event as successful as it was.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, thank you to all of you, to everybody that was involved in this. It is so impressive that you managed to pull something off with such huge participation in a very short period of time. And it's my hope that the council can find a way to support this event and ones like it, working with partners going forward. Perhaps with more time to prepare, you guys can find, working with partners, the right venue to support more people. Obviously, there is a huge need. The turnout shows that. And you're right, I live in the East Valley. There's a lot out here. So the West Valley, we definitely need to support. Thank you. Thank you so much. So hopefully you can continue to have some discussions with Mike and John, and perhaps on how we can support this going forward. Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much. All right. Mike, did you have anything to add?
He said that he's good.
Okay, he's good, because I know you're sitting at his desk. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. We are going to move on to agenda item F, our 2027-2023 state plan development, a review of community input goals and objectives with Megan Donahue. Thank you. Megan, are you ready?
Hey, everybody. I think this might be your last time having to see me at one of these council meetings and going through stuff that hopefully you found interesting, but I know some of you find boring. So, let's see here. So quick summary of things to date. We spent a long time working on that comprehensive review and analysis. We discussed a lot of that at the November council meeting. And then from that, you gave a lot of discussion on how ambitious our goals and objectives should be to make that meaningful change. Did we want to do a lot of things at a lower level, or did we want to do one or two things but go deeper, sort of thing? And we took that insight. I worked with a small work group and reviewed a lot of the input, the community input, the CRA results, and we came up with 3 goals, each with 2 objectives or 3 objectives in the third goal case, because one of them is only actionalized when there's a natural disaster. And so we, in January, reviewed those goals and objectives. You approved them to be released for public comment, and we had 45 days where of a public comment period, and then the results of that are what we're going over today. At the end of this conversation, I'm looking for a decision from you as a council, and basically it comes down to 3 options. Are you keeping the goals and objectives as they're written? Are you going to revise some or all of them but keep their essence the same, meaning an insubstantial change? Or are you going to make substantial revisions to the goals and objectives? And if you do that, just please note that's going to trigger a second public comment period, which we have built into our timeline. So that's kind of where we're going with our discussion today. And so as a quick understanding of what happened is when we released it for public comment, and you do have a written summary that I'm kind of referencing as I talk through all of this in your packet. And so our public comment period was advertised as open from February 2nd to March 19th, 45 calendar days. And we collected that feedback in, it was kind of like in a survey where the goals and objectives were presented in plain language, and then the official wording was presented, and then for each goal, so it was the goal with its accompanying objectives, then we said, you know, do you have any feedback on this goal and its objectives? And it was just open response. And then we did that for goals 1, 2, and 3. And then there was an opportunity to provide their feedback overall. And then we also asked the participants giving feedback to self-identify their different relationships with the IDD community so that we could have an understanding of where that feedback came from. So we announced the public comment period through one Facebook reel that received 2,000 or over 2,000 views and 19 clicks, one X post that received 82 views, and these numbers might be out of date. I might need to get more updated ones from Sarah. I'm not sure. I'll have to talk to her. So we might have more views on this. There was also a website advertisement on ADDPC's website. And then there was one Instagram reel, which had at least 114 reviews. And so even though we scheduled the public comment period to close on the 19th of March, we actually did not close it until March 23rd. And through all of that, we got 21 different people giving us responses. The survey was offered in English or in Spanish, and people could choose which one they wanted to do. And then, so we got 20 English responses, 1 Spanish response. The Spanish response did not include any specific comments, just an identification of who they are and their relationship to the IDD community. But we did have 11 responses of those 21 that included comments on the individual goals and objectives and or the overall plan. And then you can see in my summary how they self-identified, and they hit a lot of categories. You know, we have people working for an organization, we have people identifying as family members, people identifying as community members interested in disability issues. We had advocates, we had one self-advocate, we had one person who identified as having a disability, but not as an IDD. And then we had 10 responses that did not include any comments, just their relationship with the IDD community. We did get most of our comments more at the beginning of that period, which is important for remembering and strategies in 5 years when we do this again. And then there was also one community group that had their own public feedback forum. And they discussed the goals and objectives and then shared those notes with ADDPC. And that was led by Gabby and Jose. So the feedback as it came in got sorted into substantial and insubstantial. And I want to just take a second, like these are the technical terms. It's all important feedback, but a substantial comment is one that's recommending a change to the essence of the goal and objective. And an insubstantial comment is very valuable, but it's not something that suggests changing what the meaning of the goal is. It's more a refinement. Maybe it's wordsmithing. Maybe it's a comment about how you might implement the goal, that sort of thing. And so addressing that comment would not lead to a change in the meaning of what the goal is and that overall take home of that goal. Before I go into the comments, does anybody have any questions on that? Hearing none, seeing no raised hands, we'll move into them. So first I want to go through the substantial comments, and that is there's one substantial comment on goal 2. And then we'll go back and discuss the insubstantial comments. So for goal 2, which was that the council is going to work to shift perceptions and practices so that 1, more professionals engage effectively with people with IDD, and 2, more, I'll share my screen for those of you that are visual, just because this, particularly for this one, because there's a lot of reading involved in it. And so we're going to do this one and share. Waiting a moment. It's coming on its way and almost there. There we go. Okay. So our official wording for the goal is from 2027 to 2031, the council will shift perceptions and practices so that one, more professionals engage effectively with people with IDD, and two, more individuals with IDD and their families presume competence to pursue opportunities comparable to their peers without disabilities. To accomplish this, we have two objectives. One is by 2031, the council will support training designed or co-designed by self-advocates for professionals on how to engage with people with IDD across different settings, such as healthcare professionals, law enforcement personnel, financial advisors, caregivers, and support professionals. And the other way we would accomplish this is by 2031, the council will support education and outreach on promising practices in future planning that enable people with IDD to pursue life outcomes comparable to their peers without disabilities. The substantial comment is that basically after opportunities, change the verbiage to instead say that align with the individual's performance measure. So what they're suggesting is that the official wording be that from over the 5 years, the council will work to shift perceptions and practices so that more professionals engage effectively with people with IDD, and two, more individuals with IDD and their families presume competence to pursue opportunities that align with the individual's performance level. And instead of comparable to their peers without disabilities. So that is a big change, right? Comparable to peers without disabilities versus aligning with performance level. So I want to give you all a chance to discuss. You don't have to take the feedback. What you need to do is discuss it, consider it, and decide what your feelings are on the feedback. And so I'm going to open the floor to all of you for a few minutes right now to kind of discuss what your thoughts are about this comment and whether you support the change or don't support that change. I'll make it a little bigger, but while keeping it all on one screen.
This is Monica. I kind of agree with that. I was looking at it again just a few minutes ago, and I kind of agree with that. You know, that it would read better the way that comment worded it.
Do you want to explain some of your thought
In
process?
other words, it seemed to make more sense.
In what way?
In the sense, I feel like it's including more people.
Okay, I'm not fully understanding your train of thought. Can you keep explaining?
I'm trying to, but I was looking at it. Let me give it. Hold on, I just had it. Just a minute here. Okay. Objected to. Okay, so it is. Yeah. The council will shift engage effective. So I kind of, especially the part where it said more individuals with IDD and their families presume competent to pursue at opportunities that align with the individual's performance levels. I don't know if that's for employment or not, but when it comes to employment, everybody works differently. You know, they need to go based on their individual performance level, not just the company.
Okay. So being more personalized to the person versus
Exactly.
maybe what a company's expectation was.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a little bit of background context of the work group. Was the intention behind this goal is to raise expectations of the community, so that people with disabilities have the same expectations of themselves as people, their peers without disabilities, have for themselves.
Right. Well, I wasn't sure whether that included employment or not, but that's the experience I've had with companies where, they go by their performance and not by the individual.
Okay.
But I didn't realize that was not for, I thought it was for employment. I'm sorry.
No,
But I do
it includes, like, employment can fit underneath it, but so can other areas of life goals, right? It doesn't have to be just employment.
Okay. But yeah, I do agree with that comment. That's why I hope I explained myself well. I tried to.
John has his hand raised.
Yeah, you know what? Let me defer to Mary because I see she has her hand raised too.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can you move the screen up a little bit so I can see the next part of that sentence? Thank you. Perfect. I like the way the wording is, because this is what I think I brought up at the last meeting, was that for the sentence that reads, more individuals with IDD and their families presume competence to pursue opportunities that align with individuals' performance levels. I like it because it puts the burden on somebody in the system helping individuals and families to know what those things are, those opportunities might be. And it doesn't put the burden on, wait a minute, you've got to have different expectations for yourself and you're not doing it right. Does that make sense? I like the wording of it. Thank you. That's all. I just want to follow up because I was the one that brought it up the last time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. John?
Yeah, thank you. I think the concern that we have is that by stating that we want people to pursue opportunities that align with their performance level, we are predetermining what their performance or functional level is. Now, I don't want to go too into the weeds, I guess, on it, but it seems to us, I mean, we've talked about this as staff, and certainly I've spoken with with other colleagues about this. It seems to us that it's not our job to predetermine an individual's performance or functional level when it comes to things like employment or education or community involvement, but rather to encourage them to pursue the opportunities that interest them, and to find ways to be included in those interests or in those activities as best they are able to do that. But not to say in the beginning you are only able to go this far because that's what your performance level is. And I want to provide a little additional context as well. A number of councils around the country, as they have done their public comment periods, have gotten similar kinds of comments. In some cases, it's been even at even greater length, that they should be including language that specifically addresses those who cannot speak for themselves, those who will never be able to speak for themselves, and those who therefore should not be expected to have a role in decision-making about their lives. That to us, I mean, this doesn't seem to go that far, but I personally am concerned, and again, we've talked about this as staff, that anytime we preclude people from being a party to decision-making at whatever level, we have, in our opinion, done a disservice to them. It should be our job to open the field of opportunity to them and not tell them just how far down that field they can go. That is, I guess that is the perspective that we have. So I'm not saying that has to carry the day, but that is the concern that we've been feeling.
Does anybody have any thoughts to build on that or respond to that? Go ahead, Mary.
No, I forgot to take it off. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I agree with John, and I also get worried that I feel like you may pigeonhole some of our kids into saying, well, this is your performance level. I really have a hard time with that. I think that we face now families that don't think, and other individuals don't think that the kids can do more or achieve more, and so I kind of wanted to stay away from a performance level word in there. I like the fact that, you know, we've always wanted, I think, that our families always wanted their kids to be comparable to their peers, you know, in opportunities and education and everything. And therefore, I think the peers word is really a better word than, you know, individual performance level. So.
JJ?
Yeah, I just kind of want to follow that. I think, Kathy, that's a great point. And there are movements outside of Arizona for kind of how folks evaluate or limit folks with DD. So I guess I'm just echoing what others I think have expressed concern, one, and then two, maybe just some language change and maybe the peers alternative is the way to go. So just wanted to echo what I think I've heard others say. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yes, good morning. I agree that, the performance level, the verbiage is kind of strong and can be discouraging at the same time. So because I have a special needs adult, so I kind of go from there. I just wonder if instead of that, if to pursue opportunities that allow progress for the individual's expectations, whatever their expectations are. So you bring them to say, hey, you know what are your expectations? And you encourage them, even though the expectation is low, but here, you know what, we have the opportunities, so you can set a higher expectation, and we are providing the opportunities to, to kind of allow progress in that. I'm not sure if that is the encouraging, verbiage, but this is what I you have to encourage them. At the same time, you do not discourage them and expect, wow, performance. When I hear performance myself, it's like, oh, I need to really do very, very well. But sometimes, it takes steps. For the individuals, we need steps, so any expectation, okay, you have this goal, okay, it doesn't seem very high, the expectation, because we never have that, but then it can encourage us. So once we see that, we can move on. So it allows progression. So that is how I look at it at this point of time. Thank you.
So that's great feedback. I want to, now that some contrasting opinions have come in, I want to reflect back. The couple of support for the wording change at the beginning seem to be rooted in putting the burden on the individual instead of the council for raising the expectations, and that the individualization thought process. And so when I heard those two comments, it felt like the suggestions were not trying to change the essence of this goal, which is to not set an expectation or assume an expectation or a performance for the person, and was more at looking at still raising expectations. And so I want to give you a chance to reflect back, where was your train of thought? Were you wanting to, were you thinking about that implication that John mentioned when you were supporting that goal or that word change? Or were you thinking a little bit differently about it That kind of helps us understand whether you're thinking about a substantial change or insubstantial. Go ahead, Mary.
There's really a couple of things in this. One is that we want to have folks feel like they are more competent to pursue expectations that they haven't felt were there. And so I can dream a little bit. What is this is really possible? Oh, good. But then the other thing is that that is based on, that align with the individuals and then the families too, desires and preferences and personal preferences. And somehow or other, the performance level looks like it's more, the individual's performance level looks like it's more important than the individual's desires. And that's not the case, I don't think, because you can have somebody who really I really would love to work in the medical field. I'm really enamored by everything that goes on in the hospital and stuff. Well, there's all sorts of different levels of working in that arena. So the desire and the passion for this is important to me. I really want to do that. I want to be someplace in the hospital, a medical community. So there's two things. The one is so that this person, the individual and the family, consequently, really understand that there are some ways that they can pursue things in that arena. But what is the arena? What's the desire for the person and the person themselves, and then the family complementing that, is the real focus of that, not the individual's performance level.
Thank you. I heard it. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, well, and so much of the idea of raising expectations was, it was kind of in several different areas. First of all, raising expectations for the families to not just presume incompetence, but for the families from the very beginning to presume that their loved one is more capable than they ever give them credit for. Going back to the very beginning as parents, when we first get the diagnosis, we're told all the can'ts, everything they can't do. From the medical professionals to the therapists to the teachers during the IEP meetings, everything is such a focus on the negative of what skills are missing and where everything is deficient. And a lot of where the thought kind of around this came from was raising expectations for everybody in the community for that person with the disability, right? Like if you're given this horrible diagnosis or death sentence from the very beginning for when your child is small of what they'll never be able to do, that sets the parents' expectations low, and they believe that. How do you tell them that a 3-year-old is never going to talk or never going to have a job or never going to go to college or never do anything? So it's like everybody in that child's life from the beginning forward, when they're given like this doom and gloom outlook, everybody's expectation for that individual is low, right? So the thought was that even starting with the professionals, the teachers, the medical people, we don't know the capability of a toddler or a 5-year-old when they're so young. So raising their expectations, like, let's just see what happens. Let's give every resource available that we can to see how far we can get. This individual is capable of so much more. We're given the right resources. We can make a lot more progress, right? And then every IEP meeting we sit in, it's the focus on the negative. And then the student, as they have to sit in those meetings, they hear all the negatives of all the can'ts and what they're not able to do either. That's part of the problem. So then you have the individual themselves really doubting themselves. Everybody says, I can't do this. My parents don't believe it. My teachers don't believe it. My therapists don't believe it. So really, the raising the expectation was for literally everybody in the community that touches that person's life, right? It isn't so much about performance levels. It is, don't presume incompetence. Give somebody a chance. let's see what we can do if we give them the right supports, right? And from the very beginning. I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but that's kind of where this came from.
You're right. This is Kathy. That's exactly it. I agree with you. And the other thing is, I have a friend whose daughter is nonverbal, and guess what? She writes a book. So you look at their potential maybe in another area, but you give them that learning and everything so that down the road they can decide, what they want to do. And so I really agree with you, Melissa.
Thanks, Kathy. That was really the spirit behind this goal, not on somebody's performance, but on their ability and not presuming incompetence. And yeah, I mean, and if council feels like it can be worded better, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's to see the ability in our children. That's what you want to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And writing is challenging because it has to be written measurably, and so you got to think about all of that. But the spirit I'm hearing from quite a few of you. Does anybody have any alternative opinions? Thank you for the discussion. I'm just trying to be conscious of time. I know we could talk all day. I'm going to quickly summarize, we'll stay on goal 2 and just I'll summarize some of the substantial comments. They were really suggestions that were specific ways to address this goal in the work plan through different specific activities that get suggested. There was a couple there were some that could be more of a recognizing some need for clarification, and that could be in one of the things that comes after this is like a document to communicate the plan to the public, or a series of documents. And so that would be a great opportunity to address that concerns that needed clarification. There were a lot of comments that were conveying support for the goals and objectives. And then there were some, I feel like ADDPC, you have an identity challenge, and that is that you are often confused with DDD. And when you request comments, you get a lot of feedback for DDD. And so some of the comments were feedback to be conveyed to DDD, and they were outside of the scope of what the council does. Going back up to goal 1, we had no substantial comments that we need to really discuss, and just knowing that the insubstantial ones, there were some wordsmithing comments, suggestions for, the wordsmithing was take risks and learn, fix and move on from making mistakes. And then person-centered decisions. So it's a couple things that don't change the essence of the goal, just refinements. Suggestions for implementing the goal, requests for clarification again. There was one comment that was really for the council meetings, and to have them be moving around in location so that more people could attend. And then the other comments were support for the goals and objectives. And then again, there were a couple that were more directed towards DDD. And you have all of these comments that you can review. And then the third goal were, again, no substantial ones. The insubstantial ones were suggestions to be addressed when planning the activities for the work plan. And there was a common theme of, hey, AZ still does a lot of this emergency preparation. And so I just want to reflect back up. So goal 3 was really looking at expanding opportunities for community inclusion, so that people with IDD and their families experience a greater sense of belonging, meaningful participation, and community connection. And there were 3 objectives underneath this. One is supporting and strengthening the self-advocacy network and other organizations to implement community inclusion initiatives. And then there was also supporting community events that promote meaningful participation, building connections, and strengthening the sense of belonging. That's where the bulk of the effort of ADDPC falls. The third objective is that during natural and human-caused disasters, the council is going to support people with IDD and their families in emergency preparedness and disaster response, through collaboration with emergency management agencies, community organizations, and other stakeholders like AZ Silk that to ensure access to disability information, resources, and assistance. This objective is really in there because if an emergency happens and ADDPC wants to get involved, if it's not part of the plan, there's this big roadblock into your involvement. And so it's really built in to be actionalized when that disaster happens. And then, and it can be building on work that other people did. It's really meant to be a very flexible objective. I know that in the in the meetings where we drafted this, a lot of questions came up of like, how does all this get designed? And so there, one of the objectives that the staff is thinking about, or objectives, one of the activities that was thought about for the first year was to really look at kind of putting in some procedures in place for how ADDPC would act on this objective and having some of that framework built out and then moving forward and actionalizing as needed. Hopefully in the 5 years there are no disasters, but hey, we said that last time and then COVID happened, right? So that's what that one is getting at. So there were a few comments talking about how AZ Silk has a lot of experience in this arena and desire to not rebuild the wheel. I'm pretty sure that there is no intention to repeat efforts. It's really to be a nice concerted effort, concert effort where everything is coordinated together. So that's what that was going, just to address, because there was a common theme in that activities in the work plan one. There's also some specifics like resiliency. Tucson has an annual summit on heat and need for community resources to reach out about things like that heat summit. So there's some things through the work plan, and then questions that can be improved clarification when communicating the plan to a community. And then there's discussions to have with DDD and other partners, and then a lot of support for these goals and objectives. And then overall, you know, there weren't a lot of themes for that were just kind of overall, but there's a couple like needing half-day or all-day forums a few times a year, breaking down some of the barriers that people have in isolation across the state, and then some implementation feedback for the plan, and a couple comments for DDD and general support. So you have access to all of these individual comments. I'm going to go back up to the top of opening it up for any discussion. And then I'd like to encourage you as a council to move towards some sort of decision as to what we're doing with this feedback and our next steps, which would be, are we keeping things as written? Are we revising the some or all of the goals and objectives, but keeping their essence and meaning and intention the same? Or do we want to make a substantial revision? For example, putting in that individual performance into the goal too. So the floor is back to all you. I'm ready to listen and hear your thoughts.
Hey, Megan, this is John. Just really quickly, going back to that emergency preparedness objective, I want to be really clear that it is not the council's intent to duplicate the efforts of anyone else. And we recognize that AZ Silk has been a leader in this for a number of years. That objective is there because we are required to have that objective there. ACL has mandated that every council have an emergency preparedness or emergency response objective. And so we put that in there. Once again, we are not trying to duplicate efforts. We are not trying to supplant the work that's being done by somebody else. And we understand the reason that whoever submitted those comments submitted them. We can understand that it looks like we are stepping in where somebody else already lives. That's not the case at all. It's simply a fact that we are required to have it in our work plan and our state plan, and that's why it's there.
And you would be able to support AZ Silk in their efforts if need be, right? Like that's a big part of how you could actualize it.
Yeah, we foresee anything we do as being complementary or supplementary to the work that's being done by other agencies.
Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Melissa, as chair, I'm going to let you facilitate how you want to move towards a decision.
Okay, I guess the bigger question, do we need to change the wording on anything? I mean, and okay, so this question, yes, Sophie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm so sorry I have to go. Hi, John. I am aboard. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Sophie.
I am aboard.
Okay, so moving forward, I know that this is an actionable item, John, and question for you, if we're going to accept the plan as written or if we need to change anything. Is that kind of what you're looking for right now, motion-wise?
Yes, I'm sorry, Megan, we need to determine if we are going to change the wording, if we're going to consider that comment to be a substantial comment, and if we're going to follow the guidance that's being suggested, then we would need to put this back out. If we approve the change of wording, it's considered substantial, then we have to put it back out for another 45-day comment period.
Okay. Got it.
So if you follow the comment advice, that's substantial and goes back out. If you want to increase the clarity of that goal too, following some of the comments that were like the comment about making progressing individual expectations or doing some sort of wordsmithing that won't change it, that would be this option two of doing a revision, but it keeps it it'd be insubstantial, and that would be you're giving John and staff direction to work on some wording revisions, or just no changes after discussion. You're happy with how things are said, and that's okay. Everybody understands the intention. That would be keeping things as is.
Got it. Okay, Mary, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think that the less we interfere with this needs to move forward. And I think that the real crux of this can be worked out in terms of the actual objectives and things as we develop those, and if we have money in this, then RFPs and that's where the nitty-gritty can come out in terms of what we really want to pursue. But I don't think it's lacking. I think it basically gets the point across.
Okay, I do too. Really, and the whole point was that people with disabilities can pursue opportunities just like their peers without disabilities, and that's kind of what it says. Yes, Kathy.
I was wondering if we have some responsibility, because we did get some comments, and some were really towards DDD and their frustration with them. But I kind of wonder if we don't change that to the wording that they suggested, is there a responsibility on our part or an obligation that we kind of explain why we stayed with the current wording? Would that be helpful to put that out there if we put out the plan to be up on the website for people to see, and we say, yes, we had public comment? Is there an obligation to kind of explain why we stayed with what we did? And I'm throwing that out to you guys. So
there's no technical obligation. However, part of the scope of work that you have asked IHD to do is to provide some different documents that are community facing, explaining the goals and the plan, explaining the different goals and objectives, as well as explaining the process. And so in that, we would want to really, highlight that intention of that expectations coming through in that community facing document. So that's one way that we can close that loop and make sure the person knows they are heard, but the council feels strongly. The other way is through the meeting minutes right now. And then the third way is when we submit the state plan, we will be writing, I will be expanding on the summary with some of the discussion and decision made, so that, we're putting, when we submit it to the administration for community living, like we discussed the substantial comment, but we ultimately, the council chose to go another way. Where it really matters, where it would be a bigger deal, is if you get this comment 10 times of the 20 people, or even more, like that has a different weight. Sometimes you're going to get a comment from one person and not choose to listen to it. And that, from all the technical support and everything else, that's completely acceptable. It's that you heard them and then made a decision.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
And if we had 20 comments on this or multiple comments, I think I would be more concerned about that. But I think it can be addressed through the meeting minutes and what you talked about. Okay, so based on that, I would like to call for a motion to approve the ADDPC 2027-2031 state plan development as written. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Monica. Do I have a second?
This is Kristen.
This is Vijette. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate that. Thanks, Vijette, for jumping in if we needed it. Okay, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Is anyone not voting?
This is Kelly Rabrick. I'm abstaining. Thank you.
Okay, Kelly is abstaining. Okay, thank you so much. Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on and try and get you guys. It's going to be a little tight today. Agenda item G are community outreach activities with Sarah, Communications Director.
Hi, I'll keep it short since I know we're running tight. This is really a follow-up to some things John highlighted in his director's report and a bit of a preview on what we want to focus on. I'll say this, working with Megan and NAU on the 5-year state plan process and the focus groups we did across the state last year, it's been really smooth and I really appreciate their team. And it really got us thinking based on feedback and simply getting out into more rural areas on a more frequent basis. Okay, we want to keep this momentum going. This was only solidified, like this really came into a clearer picture for us over the past few days while we were in Washington, D.C. with the team from Arizona, meeting with our district offices. And, I've never seen the offices so intent on wanting to speak with, constituents, aka people in their district, as I have this year. What that means is they're even, they really want to make sure that they are serving the area that they represent. And that's good. Here's the reality. We need to meet with every single congressional rep and senator's office here locally. It's great for us to go to Washington, D.C. That's great for policy. We do a lot of policy around here. We just had a whole meeting on policy, right? But when we're talking about outreach, they want events in their district. So they have a team that does casework. I don't know if anybody on the call has ever used a Senate office or a representative office to tackle a problem with Social Security or veterans benefits or other type of benefits, often disability related. But they have teams, and they're not really tied to the political stances of whoever's holding that office. Sometimes these individuals have been there for years under different people. So we really want to start building relationships in all of the 9 congressional districts and in the Senate offices with these individuals, and start inviting them to outreach events like the West Valley Disability Resource Fair. I was able to brag on that a little bit when we met with the congressional staff that represent the West Valley, and they said, keep us posted, and we'd love to have a booth and send one of our caseworker team out there. And we welcome that. We think that's great. We want them to know what we're doing, the impact we're having. And we want to provide that service for people who have those technical questions and need that advocacy when it comes to programs like Social Security. So all that being said, we are looking to schedule meetings for the rest of the year under this plan, and we need your help to do that. So everybody who is interested in having an event, again, similar to like a disability resource fair, or maybe something more targeted, you know, that was focused around transition, focused around teenagers. Maybe you want something that is more focused on kids, early intervention, or aging folks, right? We serve everybody, but if you want an event in your area, let us know and we will start building that out. We've highlighted northeastern Arizona as one of the places we'd like to do an event soon. So that might look like Show Low, that might look like Winslow. And we also want to partner and have already started to have discussions with folks in Yuma. We just need to get that on the calendar. We've identified some community leaders of support groups of both Spanish speaking families and, you know, like the local school district, as well as a community advocate who came to our DAPA lunch with legislators, Alexis, who has relationships on the city council there. Those are the kinds of events we want to just build on so that we have like a domino effect across the state, really getting the name of the council out there, but providing what we think we do best, which is coordinating people to network and learn about what's going on in their community. It also provides a way for us to talk about what we want to do for the next 5 years and how we can partner with them. So that's just like a high level view. Does anyone have any questions for me about that plan? Did someone have a comment in the chat?
Sarah, there is a comment. Vijette said, come to Havasu. I'm hosting an All Abilities Resource Fair on September 5th. We would love to help. And John said, we'll be there, Vijette. Vijette also said it's also Labor Day weekend, so the last wild weekend on the lake. Okay.
Woohoo! Okay, I'm there.
Okay.
Awesome. I'll take you up on that, Vijette. Let's do it.
Okay. Thank you. That is great news. I'm glad to hear our legislators want to get a little more involved in their districts. That's fantastic. And thank you, Sarah, for heading that up. Okay. Any more comments for Sarah or questions? Okay. Thank you. That's exciting. We've got some good community activity going on, and I think those can be the most impactful. That's exciting. Thank you. All right. Committee work group, reports, Meaningful Careers. We only have 2 for those groups that have met. So Meaningful Careers, that is my committee. And then we'll hear from Kathy on work plan review. I'm sorry, this is a long note, but it's important. I'll try and make it clear. So the Meaningful Careers Committee is exploring support for a new project search site by potentially funding the program's licensing fee. I know we've mentioned this before, but we've had to explore a little bit of different areas. So Project Search is an international model that empowers young adults with disabilities to successfully transition from school to adult life by developing relevant, marketable job skills. The Council and the Sonoran Center Project Search team are currently considering 2 communities, Yuma and Suarita, Rio Rico, for a new high school-based program. Meetings are planned in both areas to determine which high school is best prepared to establish a formal partnership. If Suarita, Rio Rico is selected, It would become the first regional project search program in Arizona. That would be sort of cool. We want to recognize Vijay, sorry for sharing information about Project Search within her community. So the Lake Havasu Unified School District is actively meeting with community partners to establish a new program and has expressed willingness to fund the licensing fee. So thank you, Vijay. Thank you for your advocacy in creating meaningful real-world work opportunities for students with disabilities. We also want to acknowledge and thank Arizona Rehabilitation Services Administration, RSA, Vocational Rehabilitation, VR, for supporting Project Search in Arizona by funding tuition, providing job coaching, and facilitating transition services for students with disabilities. So as a key partner, VR helps bridge the gap between high school and competitive integrated employment. Without VR support, we wouldn't be able to have Project Search programs, and that is the truth. Special thanks to Kristen Mackey and her team for your partnership and support. Thank you so much. In addition, the council is exploring a partnership with Arizona State University to establish a technical assistance center focused on expanding inclusive post-secondary education opportunities for students with disabilities. The council previously launched the Think College AZ Alliance, which includes representatives from Arizona's 3 public universities, ASU, University of Arizona, and Northern Arizona University, as well as Grand Canyon University. Think College AZ is a collaborative initiative supported by the council to develop and strengthen inclusive post-secondary programs for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Its goals include increasing college access, enhancing academic and social growth, and improving employment outcomes. The Alliance is also engaging with community colleges to expand participation. We want all the schools involved that we can get. So once a proposal is received from ASU for the Technical Assistance Center, Mike will coordinate with the Meaningful Careers Committee meeting and to review and discuss the proposal. So thank you so much. I just heard a comment in the chat. Okay, so Kristen said Project Search, positive Project Search story, Project Search story, Daily Independent. Okay, is there a link you're posting on that, Kristen?
Yep, I posted the link there.
Oh, okay, sorry. I can't see that in the chat.
It's all good. Yep.
Okay, I just see your comment. I didn't see that. Maybe it's in there. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Kathy, on the work plan review committee report out from you.
Okay, so the work plan review committee met on March 11th, and we heard from the ADDP staff the goals, objectives, and activities for the new 27 to 2031 plan. And you've heard from Megan, so there isn't a whole lot that I can say. We do have, 3 goals: meaningful change, shifting perceptions, and community inclusion. And then we have objectives underneath that, and we have 7 objectives, and then activities under each one of those goals and objectives. There is some additional funding or funding that has not been assigned. I think it wasn't on the 11th assigned to projects. And so the staff were looking for more suggestions how to use that funding. And some of the areas could be in extending or propping up the data hub, doing more in transportation, and the clemency law clinics. So if you have ideas in those areas, or if you have ideas in other areas based on what you've seen in the goals and objectives, please reach out to the staff and provide your suggestions, because they are looking for suggestions from us. And that's all that I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you for chairing that committee. I know it has been a lot of work. Okay. Please note that Kristen did post the link to that article. All right. Moving on to agenda item I, announcements. So do any of our council members or staff have announcements they'd like to make? Okay, hearing none. Agenda item J, call to the public. We do have some members of the public. Would anybody any of our visitors today like to say anything? You don't have to, but you're welcome to. Okay. Thank you for attending and spending time with us today. Okay. Agenda item K, I'm going to call this meeting to adjournment at 11:58 a.m. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time.
Public comment at this time?
Oh, yes, we can go back to that. Is this Mr. Delgado?
Yes.
Hi there. Yes, Mr. Delgado, for agenda item
Yeah.
J. Yes, sir. Go
All
ahead.
right. I'll be brief.
Okay.
First to say, I'll be brief on this one. I'm going to say just short 3 items. Good meeting and everything. I learned a lot, like I always do, and I'm always glad that other people on the outside who are online in right manner. Just 2 things I'd like to add. On the agenda, if somebody could make some information on what the ARC is doing to our state and national. John makes a lot of good remarks, but I haven't heard anything even from the council members. And then the other one will be the self-advocacy group. I haven't heard anything of what they're doing in Arizona, and I think it'd be nice to know. And that's just a couple of items on some of the parents like me on our side. I have one last point real quick. I think it's kind of important. It's just a recommendation. A good meeting to say that John gave a real good report today. I'd like to recommend, just as an input, is there any way without interfering with the bylaws or planning program or anything of that nature to interfere, but is there any way that when John completes the executive director only, when he gives us a long list of things are so important, special legislation, when he asks for public comment only to the council members, because that's the policy practice, I'm aware of that. Is there any way, just on John's program, on John's executive director, because he gave a lot of good information, that people on the line, the public input part, could that be changed and ask questions only in that particular item to the directors, because it's so important. I myself take notes on the item that he said. Becky Irons, who was a commissioner of some review, I'd like to make a comment. Is she going to give a report? I'd like to get a report from what she come up with for Arizona. Of course, she does it published nationwide. I would want to know if there can be a period that could be open when John, executive order, makes us complete his program and then ask for any questions. Just on that one area, because I know the policy, the practice, the agenda, and the guidelines that has to be done. Is there any way that the council can recommend, and maybe just on that one area, because it seems to be so important, it covers a lot. That's all I need to know, but that's the main thing that's come up when I discussed and I talked to others. I'm in research, and I think public input on this particular, if any changes can be made, I don't know what the procedure is, but I also understand, I'll close with this, that's a policy. If it can be done, starting with the governor's office when they provide the members who follow the guidelines to be appointed, or maybe within the compliant guidelines, the bylaws. I don't know that neither. But if it can be done, hey, I think it'd be great. I talked to other parents on this, and they said, I think it's a good idea. And I'd like to recommend it if it can be done. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado. I think that's something that we can discuss and look into, and you're right, we would have to look at our bylaws. That's a good question and a good point. I'm so glad that it has a big impact on me too, when John talks about all of the legislation and his director's report out, but I'm really pleased to hear that it does for the public as well. John, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's something we can certainly discuss. We're going to have to go back and refer to open meeting law and see what restrictions it places on us for public comment. And we can, I'm sure we can arrive at some kind of decision regarding what we can do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the comment.
Yep. And Marcy, your comment that it's open meeting law. I don't know if you're stating that prevents us from putting it in at that time, or that we need to look?
We need to review the open meeting law. This has nothing to do with the bylaws or the governor's executive office. It's what's required in the open meeting law regarding public input.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Delgado, for your comment, I think you said on the ARC, that would be something, unless it's on the agenda. I don't know if you were asking that John put what the ARC is doing on the agenda. That's not really council, but I don't know if I understood your comment or your question, sir.
Hi, I came on really
And they
fast
should.
today.
Hey, hang on a second,
Advocacy.
Sophie.
The STEP advocacy group. I haven't heard anything of that nature, of their program and what they're doing in their like manner. It just those two would be good information, anything you develop in Arizona as well as national. I think those would be two good items that we as parents should be aware of, or like should be aware of. I, for one, yes.
Okay, so update on the self-advocacy group that we're working with through the ARC of Arizona. Okay, John can take that into consideration, perhaps. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for allowing me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Sophie, unless you had a comment, we're going to adjourn the meeting because we are done for the day.
Yeah. I wanted to say hi, John. Taylor Swift won 7 iHeart Awards last night. I don't know if you saw, but if you haven't seen the 20th anniversary of Hannah Montana, please do so. Also, hi, I love you. I'm so sorry that I came on late.
Okay. Well, thanks for popping in, Sophie. Okay. Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thank you for your time and attention. I will officially now call this meeting to end at 12:05 p.m. Thank you so very much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.